Would you like
Do you
me
want
to
to just
go ahead?
talk, Dr. Shoemaker, about like why running from the floor and how this, what's
Sure,
how
sure.
that all happened?
My name is Jamie Shoemaker. I live in northern Indiana, not far from some of you, up near Notre Dame. I work for Elite Emergency Physicians. We're a private democratic group. We have 4 hospitals and 3 different systems. We touch about 180,000 patient visits per year. I've been here for 13 years. I trained in Kalamazoo, Michigan with Dr. Overton at MSU KCMS, which is now the amazing WMed. They're doing amazing stuff there. I have been very actively involved in ACEP all through residency. Dr. Overton made it very important to us, Dave, and then came down to Indiana. My wife's from Indiana, so now I'm a lifelong Hoosier. I got very involved at the state level. I got invited to a board meeting, was just enchanted by what was going on and some issues we had. And so I asked if I could, be more involved, and they said certainly. And so I worked my way through, became president of my state chapter, doing a lot of local state advocacy issues. And I wanted to do more, and so I got involved at the National ACEP. First committee I joined was National Chapter Relations, because being from Indiana, we're a smaller chapter, and so I thought it was important that we build bridges and have toolkits available to other chapters. I'm actually the chairman of that committee this year for ACEP, and so that's been really great. Part of my journey is I really got involved in my small group. I'm the director of quality and compliance. I also do a lot of the billing and coding for my group to help buoy up their charts, to help them make sure they're doing what's appropriate. And so I got involved with reimbursement, and I was fortunate recently to have been one of the college saw that there was a shortfall of people coming up through the ranks that wanted to be involved with reimbursement to help with the RUC and the CPT committees and things. And so I give them a lot of credit. They had some vision, and they selected 5 of us, 75 of us applied for 5 spots, and I was one of the reimbursement fellows for the college. And so I was on that journey for 18 months with some 4 other individuals who are just amazing. And we got to see the nuts and bolts and got really into the weeds about reimbursement and coding and the headwinds the college faces. And as a result of some of my work product and the potential, I'm very fortunate to have been selected as the alternate rep to the RUC for ACEP. So John Proctor and I sit at the table for RV evaluation for the House of Medicine, and also working with Jordan Celeste, who's just amazing, from Florida, and some others, to advocate on behalf of our own codes. And so it's just been amazing. And I've been following in my mentor's footsteps for a while. My goal was to run for the board of directors next year. And I'm on steering committee this year, and I literally was at work when Amy unfortunately had to withdraw. And I had several people reach out to me, including Becky Parker, Paul Kivala, and some others, asking me to run. And it wasn't, for them, it was, they saw the headwinds such as I for reimbursement. They wanted me to bring my skill set for reimbursement and coding to the board now, because waiting 18 months could be a detriment. So I really, to be honest, I'm on steering. I didn't even know what a full run meant. And so I had to ask a couple of people, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't jumping the shark. And then, so I called my wife first, and we had some conversations, and we did a calculus. And for me, I feel I'm called to serve. I think that the college also, with Amy's unfortunate withdrawal from California, there would have only been 4 candidates for 4 slots. And I think that we are so revered in the House of Medicine. I think we really need to have a contested election where our counselors can make informed decisions on the candidates they feel that are best to serve the college going forward. And so with all of that rubric, I decided that now was the time. And so I'm excited for the opportunity. It's been really amazing, the momentum, the team that has coalesced around me that are helping me with my campaign, because I had no idea how much work was involved. In full disclosure, I was working with the Arvin Venkat's campaign just because I'm a friend of the college. He asked me to help, and also with Jillian on her campaign, so I could get some background information for my own campaign. So Arvin was actually the call I made first before I even talked to my wife, because I wanted to make sure he knew that I have a lot of respect for him, and wanted to make sure he knew it wasn't because I didn't think that he had things to offer the college. So with all of that said, I feel that now's the time. I want to come forward. I see understanding economics of medicine from the micro level of my small group to the macro level with the RUC. I know some challenges that we're going to be facing. And when I come to the board as a board member, it'll be not just me, it's going to be myself and the network of people I've met, the fellows, Ed Gaines, the reimbursement champions of the college, Dave McKenzie, Adam Krasinski, working collaboratively so we could be a little more proactive in some of our responses to our reimbursement challenges, and not always reacting to things that have already occurred. We have a lot of challenges ahead. The continual erosion of reimbursement is a real challenge. I think that oftentimes as I look as a reimbursement fellow at the landscape of our college, sometimes I often use the line, I think we're a circular firing squad. I think that we all have the same ideas of what we want, but we're going about it differently and we're stepping on each other's toes. And so I think we have the loudest megaphone under the tent of ACEP. And so I think we need to use our megaphone and try to get some of those splinter relationships stronger with other organizations so that we can be, work for our fair reimbursement and for our patients. So, the college has invested a lot in me financially and also with time and mentors as a fellow. And so I'd like to give some of those dividends back. And so there's a lot of moving parts for my decision to run from the floor. I know it's, but it's also unprecedented times. And so here I am. I'm not an opportunist. This isn't something I would have done myself, but I had 5 individuals that I really respect in the college reach out to me to ask me to run. And so here I am. And so it's been just an amazing experience. So I could go on and on, but whatever else you'd like to know, I'm happy to, tell you more about myself or what I'm doing or my interests or whatever you'd like.
Thanks, Jamie. I was an Indiana grad, so I moved to Michigan for residency. So you and I switched places.
Okay.
We didn't lose any good docs, right?
No, it's an even keel, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that, one of the reasons why I stayed in Michigan, honestly, was I really liked how active the Michigan chapter was. And I had some friends that had gone back to Indiana and they felt like, that wasn't necessarily the case. And so I'm curious, how the chapter is moving forward. I know traditionally they had like the one academic meeting. Can you tell us about any other chapter changes?
Sure. It's an excellent question. And when I was chapter president in 2015, 2016, that was one of our motivators, was to try to get increased membership. And then I'm happy to say over the past 5 years, we were able to add enough new members that we have 2 more counselors at council. And so what we're trying to do is do more outreach. Chris Ross, who was followed me 2 years after I was president, we've really been trying to use the Engaged platform more. We have weekly communications we're trying to send out to members. We have our newsletter that we send out both print and electronically. We have our annual meeting, which obviously was canceled this year because of COVID. But we've also now working with the Ohio chapter. They've reached out to try to do a residency forum with working with them as well. So it's been hard, as you know, being the chairman of National Chapter Relations, engagement is somewhat difficult because everybody's very busy. We have hard, demanding jobs, and when you're off, sometimes people just want to be off. And so I've just been trying to resonate among our state chapter, and also what I'll be doing is with the National Chapter Relations Committee is that ACEP membership and contributions are really an investment in you. So we talk about, the dues that we pay and our state chapter dues, they are expensive. I mean, I'm not going to argue that, but, I think that, it's truly an investment. And the argument that we just recently told our state delegation was, we at the RUC, the CMS, we're facing a 6.8% reduction in our reimbursement this coming year because of budget neutrality. What people don't know is that should have been 11%. And it's because of the hard work and the meetings at the RUC, John Proctor, Ethan Booker, myself, Jordan Celeste, Dave McKenzie, soliciting CMS and saying, we just won this battle where we got an increase in our E&M codes for the emergency department. And now you're kneecapping us because what's happening, as you are most likely aware, is office codes are going up, which they've had, our colleagues that work in the office and the primary care have been shortchanged for quite some time, in my opinion. So that needed to be increased. But with budget neutrality, the pot is the same. And so we're taking a reduction, but we talked to CMS and how our codes and emergency medicine from 99281 through 5 increased from 3 to 5%, with a big emphasis on intensity. And so that would have been multi-millions of dollars every year, hundreds of millions of dollars. But this year, because at the RUC, they have a lot of terminology, but we crosswalk to office codes. So E&M office codes are what we crosswalk to when we look at emergency department codes. And because they're going up, ours are going down. It's sort of that leveling, if you will. And so we had a compelling argument, a 9-page letter that we wrote to CMS about the contributions to our specialty, and we were persuasive that the cut will only be 6.8% versus 11%. And so now we flip to our next thing will be what can we do, and it's Congress. And so now we need to talk about budget neutrality and why that's a detriment to medicine. Because we've all seen those graphs where physician reimbursement on the Medicare fee schedule was flat, and the cost of owning an office and different things are just escalating, not keeping up with the cost of inflation at all. We thought we had a big win when we got rid of the sustainable growth rate formula 5 years ago, or 6 years ago. Now we have MACRA and MIPS, which is just a whole other bag of worms. But I think budget neutrality is our next headwind. And so I'm an advocate. I feel that we need to be paid fairly for what we do. And I'm not afraid to say that, we deserve to, we should not be ashamed of what we make. We work very hard. The opportunity cost to get into our positions is very hard and demanding. And so fair reimbursement is something we should all be fighting for. And so I hope as a board member to be that voice and to bring more people together cohesively so we can continue that fight.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I think too, like just from a chapter standpoint, anything we can do to sort of work together, Michigan, Indiana would be great, moving forward as well.
Absolutely. I think it's just right, Michigan, we talk about some amazing chapters. We always think about Michigan, Ohio, Texas, New York, California. It's the larger chapters. You are well-oiled machines. I mean, I'm sure there's some intrinsics that we don't always know about, but you do such a fine job. And a lot of the medium-sized chapters, like how can we get to that level? And so that's the whole idea, is to mentor-mentee kind of programs with smaller and larger chapters to help buoy them up. Because, I think that they find value in that. And, I talked to Dr. Rosenberg this year as well on one of my conference calls. He met with all of the chairmen, and one of the goals this year is to bring some smaller chapters together in little catchment areas so we can have Zoom calls to see how they can help each other to help work, and there's also a lot of resources chapters don't even know are available because, the ACEP website is not easy to navigate. And so the idea is to have a better toolkit available to them to help them everywhere from bylaws to membership engagement to grants. We're hoping that we'll have the grant program back next year. But as you know, the college has some financial headwinds as well. So hopefully the grant program will be back in the next fiscal budget.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate your experience in the fellowship that you completed. I think that's fantastic. I know we were speaking briefly before everybody joined. Certainly, these have been trying times with COVID. We've done much more remotely than we ever have. But then again, perhaps this is an opportunity as well. We talked about some of the smaller chapters that perhaps don't have the resources that the larger ones do. And it seems like this platform would be an amazing resource to bring us together. I would love to see offerings and education from ACEP with respect to much of what you learned with your fellowship. I think that's, I would love to see more educational offerings and again, this amazing platform to bring us together.
I think that's excellent. My friend Brian Graham and I, Brian works at Cleveland Clinic. He was one of the fellows. We reminisce about back when we were kids, and we watched that cartoon, How a Bill Becomes a Law. And so we thought it'd be great to, how a patient encounter becomes your paycheck. A lot of our colleagues don't really care how the sausage is made, and that's okay. I have a lot of partners that go to work, they do great work, they punch the clock, drink their coffee, and go home, and that's perfectly fine. But they also give me protected time to do the things that I need to do to advocate for myself and for my group and our specialty. And I think that, absolutely, if people want to know what the different components are, I think that education's key, and it also gets people engaged and involved. One last thing I thought too, to what you had mentioned, is the college this year also started doing weekly calls with all the chapter executives from all chapters, which I think they've gotten amazing feedback. And so there's an email that I get copied on, and they have a phone call each week with Sue Sidori, the new chapter executive for our chapter ACEP director that took Dean's place, and that's been very well received. And they feel that they're really, they're keeping their finger on the pulse of the college and the things that are changing in the future. So I think those are all things we're going to keep going into perpetuity. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So Jamie, thanks for joining us. I have a bit of a kinship with you. My parents grew up in South Bend,
Okay.
And it sounds like you're in that area, and I was a past National Chapter Relations Chair, so we have a couple of things in common there. My question is actually about a couple of the resolutions. There are a couple that deal with policing, banning chokeholds and not using tear gas and rubber bullets. And I'm wondering, should ACEP be in the business of telling the police how to do their jobs?
And that's an excellent question. And I've, in this journey I've been on for the past 3.5 weeks, it's been interesting because, you need to think as how you would act as a board member, right? Because we're representing all of our colleagues. And I think that we need to be very careful with wedge issues. And I think that the police are the best at doing their jobs. And my stance on that is I don't want somebody telling me how to practice medicine. I don't think we're in the business of telling them how to do their policing. I think, there could be best practices, but I think that they're best with the police being in charge of that, perhaps with some liaisons from different health specialties of medicine if they choose to do so. But those resolutions, I think, are going to get a lot of discussion on the asynchronous discussion board that's going live today. I think that it's in the spotlight right now. Obviously, we saw some of the things that had happened with the George Floyd situation and the choking and the chokeholds, the rubber bullets not being used appropriately. I think that goes back to training. I wouldn't know how to, I can't change the oil in my car. I'm not a police officer, so I don't think I'm the best person to give them advice on what they should be doing. I think what we need to do as a college is always put our patients first, what's best for patient safety, advocate that they're using best practices, but I don't think that I feel strongly actually that we should not be telling them how to do their jobs. I think that that's best left to them with consultation as they see fit.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Jamie, one other question. I'm curious if one of the things we've struggled with in Michigan is sometimes having legislative wins. We really have a hard time showing our success, I think, as a chapter to our members because we struggle with that. And the big voice in Michigan has always been Michigan State Medical Society. So I'm curious if the national chapter has thought about doing more outreach to help us during those times, because it feels like we kind of found out about these things last minute. Sorry, my dog is not happy right now. We find out about them like kind of last minute, and then there's changes, and it seems like the legislators are kind of going around us. And so just wondering if you have any suggestions about how to get some help during those times.
Sure. Well, there's a couple things to that. We had some of those same struggles in Indiana with the Indiana State Medical Association down at the Capitol. And so flattery is what we did was we approached them and said, we have a lot of the same ideas, but we want, the whole mantra is if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And so each year now we have a legislative dinner where we invite members from ISMA, and we also invite our, the governor, and others that can come, and we go to a steakhouse. It's funded by the state chapter, and we talk about issues. We have residents present some issues and some of the headwinds that we see that could be coming legislatively. And some might say, well, you're giving them ammunition, but for us, it's actually been great because we're getting outreach. Like if we talk about a balanced billing resolution, would you be willing to help us in, constructing how we should word that? Because it sounds like you have more input than, we need your input. It's valuable. And so we just try to build bridges. Now, when they're working around you, I think this is a theme that other states have had as well. And I almost think ACEP needs to have a strike team, when we become aware of these different things where we can. Adam Krasinski would be willing to do this from the reimbursement side as well with Dave McKenzie, where if we're aware of what's going on, because we talk about every state each month. We have the frying pan report, Adam likes to call it, like if you're in the frying pan, if you're on the menu on different things. And so I think that it would be very easy to reach out to the state representatives if they're not on the committee about what our concerns are, what have the successes been in the past, and ways to strategize that going forward. But at the state level, we found it was very rewarding for us to get to know them by name. They knew who we are. So we get invited down to the State House, and oh, Dr. Shoemaker, how are you? And it's been very rewarding, giving testimony, which I know a lot of you are doing as well. But just having that impromptu where, we have issues, but let's just get together and break bread it just pays so many dividends for us, and it's just crazy because they're very busy. So they get to let loose, and it's amazing how many of the state representatives come and join us. It's attended by 30 to 40 different people from the State House. We've had the Lieutenant Governor join us, and then we've also had a representative for Governor Holcomb come. He's been very busy, but that's been really, really rewarding for us because we sort of know what's going on. And then our lobbyist, Lou Belch down in Indianapolis, he gets to know, I guess he has some backroom conversations. He knows what might be coming down the pike. People talk, they're more receptive to talking. And so we're not surprised by some of the legislation that gets pushed through. And so, I'm open for any conversation because I think it's important. You shouldn't have things get pushed down if you're not giving your input. And so I think that, again, a strike team from ACEP where we could look at the issues and, give you the resources that have already been done and have been successful at other states, which some I know reimbursement committee is looking at now. And then also just having a network of people you can reach out to. There's no reason you can't have a list of the reimbursement fellows or people that work for the reimbursement committee that could reach out on your behalf and talk about the issues and why there's concerns, because we're all in this together. So ACEP is for everyone, all practice types and environments, and we want everybody to be financially whole. And so I'm open to all of those different suggestions because I know that there has certainly been some headwinds in the past. I know it's worked in Indiana. We've been quite successful, and hoping that can go forward in other states as well.
Jamie, Greg Gaffney, Pappas, I'm the president-elect for the college here. In our most recent legislation that we got, as Belinda said, the 2 out of 4 things, we went from a really poor legislation to kind of poor legislation, which is too bad. But one of the big reasons is that insurance is so powerful in Michigan. The Blues run at least, I know Jim would know, but I think it's like 80 to 90% of all insurance in the state. They have their own legislation. It's pretty actually ridiculous in Michigan how powerful they are. And so getting to kind of the same question that Millie had, like how, in some respects, how would you partner, how would you have ACEP partner or people partner to kind of go, in a sense, go against their lobby? Because they're so strong here that we have a very hard time. Anytime they want to put something through, they basically get what they want. And we use all these different organizations and it doesn't seem to make a difference. And I feel like that goes back to reimbursement too, which is the same idea, is that if they keep dictating all the rules, then we're not going to have any fair reimbursement. And Michigan itself is the second worst in the country in regards to % of reimbursement based on Medicaid or Medicare, I think it is. So anyway, sorry, thanks. I appreciate you being here.
No, Greg, what you say is very true. This year, my state chapter and I, we authored Resolution 25, which talks about the adverse effects of healthcare insurers, because they truly are the enemy. I think that, there's a lot of different things going on, but what it all comes down to in all practice environments is it's the pie of money that we have, right? We don't have a money tree in the back. It's, we see patients and we get paid for those encounters. We have large behemoths of insurers in Indiana as well. And I wish there was a simple answer to that question. I think that there's power in numbers. They know that. That's why they're leveraging that against us. I think that, the patients right now, I think I told some of my colleagues, with COVID, it's been very trying, but if we had to find some silver linings, we're wearing the white hat. We are the heroes, the frontline providers. I think we need to use some of those wins to our back to let the patients know that we're here for them. It's going to be, and ACEP's talking about this, about the marketing, letting the patients know that we are here, the whole mantra we know, 24/7, 365, and why it's important that you're treated by an emergency medicine physician, preferably, board certified, and why that's so important. And that, the insurers, they're leveraging, we have EMTALA, which for you and I, we would talk, it's probably the best thing about our job is that we see all comers, doesn't matter. That's the first 15 minutes of the undifferentiated patient is our bread and butter. We are, we sort them in the whole Harry Potter, sick or not sick, put them into their house and figure out what's going on. And we do that we don't discriminate. We take care of everybody the same. And so there should be no discrimination in our reimbursement. And so I think that, letting patients know that, we're here for you and this is what the insurers are doing. We need to turn the tables. The insurers were playing the whole mantra that we are the most expensive. Well, actually we're 2% of healthcare costs approximately. We do amazing care. It's shocking when we talk to medical students. We have a patient that comes in with an acute MI. We'll diagnose a STEMI in the field. We'll activate the cath lab. they'll come to us, and we'll give them heparin, stabilize, get them to the cath lab usually within less than 30 minutes because we're trying to meet our metrics. And we're going to bill potentially a 99285, maybe critical care, depends. They're going to go to the cath lab, and as soon as they open up the sheath for the stent, that's 5 times what you're getting reimbursed plus. I mean, that's where the healthcare costs are. And so we need to, again, the leveraging of EMTALA, which I speak to in my resolution, is just, they're weaponizing it against us. I know that's a strong word, but I truly feel that way. They know that we have to see them because of the unfunded federal mandate. And so we need to keep letting our legislators know, we need to let them know what EMTALA means and why it's important and why we love it, okay? But also what it's been doing to us financially and how it's going to impact care for patients. And also the prudent layperson is a big deal, where insurers are trying to not pay us for diagnosis lists, and there's exclusion lists, and the list goes on and on. There's probably a list of 20, 25 different tactics that they're using. I think the best voice for us is going to be our patients that come to us and have the excellent care. The patients are getting stuck with higher and higher premiums, copays, deductibles. I just read an article that the insurers, posting billion-dollar profits, now they think that they need to increase premiums because of the COVID costs. Well, what are the COVID costs? All that money that they are making from not having elective procedures. I mean, I'm sure you're like, that's now they're ramping up now, but there were several months where we weren't doing any elective procedures. That's money they weren't paying out. And so it's a very difficult issue with not an easy answer, but I think it's going to take everybody on the forefront, and I think our patients and our colleagues are our best messengers. And so if we can just keep banging that gong, but what they're doing, the insurance companies are doing, it's despicable. The behavior, they're putting profits over patients, and that's what we just need to make sure people know, that that's not what we want to do medicine for. We took the Hippocratic Oath, and unfortunately insurers do not. They're all about the mighty dollar. And so that's where we are today. And in the landscape right now in healthcare, we are fee for service, and that's going to be shifting somewhat to, advanced practice models and things. But for the current system we're in now, to protect our patients and our incomes now, those are the headwinds we face. And so it's going to be a collective effort, Greg. There's a whole task force, and hoping to do more work with EDPMA. They know ACEP EDPMA had a really great task force, which is now defunct because they go away with the new presidents. But I think that Jillian and Chris, both of our president-elect candidates, both know that this is a very important issue. It's in states that have a very large lobby and insurance presence are at the top of that list to help. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Jamie, Jim Mishner, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm also a Hoosier, born in Fort Wayne.
Awesome.
My undergraduate degrees are from Purdue. I managed to get up to Michigan somehow. I read Resolution 25 with a great deal of interest, and I take it you really don't care for insurance companies?
Not at all. Here's my thing. I like to deal in the here and now. I mean, obviously people talk about single payer, fine, but that's not a conversation for today, just because that's not the landscape we're in. What can we do right now to help protect our residents that are trying to find jobs, and for our patients? And what we're on Twitter, you see the Zach Coopers of the world, they're all funded by insurers saying, how we make too much money, we overbill, we overcharge. I think it's time, we're large, emergency medicine, we need a healthcare economist, we need a white paper, and we can have objective information talking about the erosion of our compensation. I think, we all have thoughts of what's going on, but, the college, they've talked about it for a while. I think it's important that we, we address them head on. I think that, in the whereas, which a lot of the counselors can read, a lot of people are unaware. Like I said, they go to work, do their job. I don't think they were aware of all of the different headwinds we face. I mean, every month there's a new insurer that's trying to not pay for EKGs. They want to bundle it with your level coding because of chest pain, or they don't want to pay for POCUS, for point of care ultrasound, because, they don't want to do the modifiers for those codes. And so every day's a challenge. And so, no, I'm not a fan of healthcare insurers, because again, the antics that they play and talking with them, sitting around the table with them, they really, they have their mantra, they have their recited lines, and they're all about profit. And it's despicable.
So, you bring up a lot of things about health insurance companies, market consolidation, for-profit plans, pushing more cost onto patients, leveraging legal implications of ERISA for self-funded plans to avoid state insurance oversight, acquisition of PBMs, creative solutions to minimize medical loss ratios, and using EMTALA as an excuse not to pay us fair reimbursement. All of these things are legal, ethical, reasonable from the standpoint of the insurance company. And I would argue that, you know, these insurers have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to do all this, to make a profit. So what do you think the fundamental problem is with the way we finance healthcare in the United States?
Well, the problem, that's a very complicated issue. I think that we talk about single payer, but that would just be the government doing rate setting, and I'm not a fan. I think that they're always going to try to give us the lowest amount they can. I mean, I sit at the RUC, that's Medicare rates. You would be blown away by what a cardiothoracic surgeon gets paid to do an open heart surgery. It's not much. And so if all of the House of Medicine is reimbursed at Medicare rates, we're doomed. And so we need a process where we can continue the fight for fair reimbursement for what we're doing. The reality is that we are in a system now where we have the insurers, we keep offsetting, they're funneling our patients to urgent cares. They're setting their co-pays there to be less than they are for the emergency department to try to get them to go there. And so the patients we're seeing now are sicker. And so as you probably have seen, our acuity curves are shifting to the right, level 4s and level 5. So what did the insurance company say? Well, yeah, you're seeing too many sick patients, you're an outlier. So we're going to start down coding you until you can prove to us otherwise. I mean, the practices, I don't think they're ethical. And I would disagree with that. And I would go toe to toe with them. I think what they're doing is they're violating EMTALA, they're weaponizing EMTALA, and they're violating prudent layperson. We all hear that when somebody comes to me with chest pain and they're diagnosed with esophageal spasm, well, to them it was a life threat. They were concerned they were having a heart attack. So there's no reason that my level 5 code and my workup should be downgraded because of a diagnosis list. And that's what a lot of these insurance companies are doing. So that's where we are right now. The rate setting is a real problem. I think that, when you're told you're going to make 1 or 1.5 times Medicare, that doesn't keep the lights on for a lot of facilities. I also look at rural hospitals. We just had a report that came out that pre-COVID, 500 rural hospitals were facing financial duress or closure. Now it's over 800. And so there's no easy answers to these, but these patients, there's fewer patients. And when they go there, they end up getting transferred. So then those hospitals are left with patients that have high co-pays and deductibles that they can't reach. And so that's bad debt left to the hospital, which they're never going to recover. And so I think we need to keep fighting this fight for fair reimbursement for what we have now. Because again, I'm dealing with the here and now. I mean, I think the future may change, but right now the landscape of medicine and at the RUC and the House of Medicine sitting around the table, there's no appetite for single payer. That's not coming anytime soon based on the feedback at the RUC. And so I think that we need to continue our talking about what's best for patients. And, when they're making billions and billions of dollars, I think that that's sickening when patients' co-pays, deductibles, and co-insurance keep increasing. And so I think we need to keep messaging it to our patients and letting them know this is why your costs are so high. I think that's where we are. There's no easy answer to that, but it's very clear to me that if we would let them go to their own devices, they would just erode us down to that of primary care. And no disrespect to my primary care providers, but the risks that we take, the patients that we see, again, I'll fight for our fair reimbursement.
So Jamie, if you're elected to the board, what advice would you give Sue Sidori as the new ACEP Executive Director for leading the college into the future?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I got to be honest, when I reached out to Sue, when Sue became aware I was a floor candidate, she was one of the first to reach out to me, and she wanted to set up a call just to talk, to get to know me a little bit better. And she just sent out, ACEP has a list of 10 pages, single space, of all the accomplishments they got done last year. Sue has been sitting in on all of the meetings at the board, as a candidate. We're able to sit in for the board meetings, and she's been a very active listener. She's been asking questions, and she's not afraid to say, what can we do better? What can we do from this committee to help our members? I think that obviously we had a great relationship with Dean, and I'm very excited for the relationship we're going to have with Sue. She has amazing connections from her past life with her other career. She's very energized, and she's so nice. She took this job during the pandemic. I mean, can you imagine? She uprooted her family, moved to Dallas, but she's doing amazing things. I think for Sue, I think it's important that we keep the focus on our members, and she's aware of that. What can we do to increase the value of membership? I think it's important that we echo that a membership in ACEP is an investment in you and not necessarily dues. And that we also need to keep buoying up our smaller and larger, our small and medium-sized chapters and having resources available. She's also very in tune with the physician wellness. And from my perspective, wellness for me isn't like yoga and Pilates, no disrespect, I can't do yoga, but I'm more about, the stresses we face with having a malpractice suit. I've been sued, it's a very dark place. I fortunately have good mental health, but I can see where you could spiral when you're facing those demons of the lawyers talking to you like you're evil. I think that making sure that we have physician wellness resources available are very important. And she's also very in tune and needs to be very in tune with that we represent all members of ACEP in all practice environments. And so we need to make sure that we're open and receptive to what's best for all members. And so far, my interactions with her and preparing on steering committee and also for council have been just extraordinary. She's exceeded my expectations, and she's always looking for positive, constructive feedback. So I think so far it's been going very well. My advice to her, Robert, would be continue doing what you're doing, because she's been welcomed with open arms, and she's been very, very informative and receptive on the meetings that we've had so far.
Great, thanks.
Jamie, this is Luke Saski. I work right off the Indiana border. I'm over in Southwest Michigan.
Okay.
But one of the things that we see consistently, other than rural hospitals always being on the brink of extinction, is mid-levels increasingly gaining importance within the hospital environment. And especially accelerated with COVID and just the saturation of the market that's coming, there is a significant threat to the concept of physician-led care. I think it's appropriate to have a role for PAs and NPs. What is your vision of where that should go? Right now, there are certainly NP mills out there, and there are people practicing without appropriate supervision.
Hey, Luke, that's an excellent question. And I think that scope creep is a real problem. I think that nobody will deny that the emergency department is best as a multidisciplinary team, but the quarterback and champion of that team must be an emergency physician. And my vision would be a board certified emergency physician. I don't think there's any place for the independent practice of a non-physician provider to be in charge of an emergency department without physician oversight on premise. I think it's very important. I think back to when we just had a dispute last year in Indiana where they were trying to get independent practice, which we defeated. I went down to the State House and I met with Susan Crouch, our Lieutenant Governor. We were talking, and she asked who my physician colleagues were in the corner, but they were actually nurses that came to the State House wearing white coats, trying to to get the ear of the legislators. That's wrong. And I'll be the first. I told the Young Physicians section in EMRA, we need to stand for what we represent. We are board certified emergency physicians, and also those that we've grandfathered in have done amazing work. But that's what patients expect. Their expectations when they go to the emergency department is that they're going to see a doctor and they're going to see somebody in the emergency room that's an emergency physician. And that is our goal. It's a lofty goal. Rural health settings, it's difficult, but for where we are, absolutely. The argument, we give them independent practice, so go to the rural settings. Well, that's great, and they said that, but the studies aren't showing that at all. They're not doing that. They're trying to get the jobs from our residents in desirable areas. David Overton told me, Jamie, you can have the job, the location, or the pay, but never all three. And I understand that, and so, it's important that we look at our workforce. You had mentioned about the dilution of the workforce too. So I think this sort of goes hand in glove too with residency programs and the dilution of our residency spots and future job work. I think we need to do a workforce study. In 2019, ACEP did do a study of graduating residents. Most of them were successful in getting a job in the area that they wanted to be in. I think post-COVID is going to be a markedly different answer. But I also know that we have one of the highest levels of burnout. So I think our attrition is going to be much higher than we anticipate. And so I think we need to survey our members. We need to do a workforce study. There's almost 250 emergency medicine residencies in the United States right now. 250. That's crazy. Right. And so I look at my colleagues in dermatology and, orthopedics, they're limiting those numbers. And so then, there's fewer of them. And so it helps with the economics of their job. I get that. Why do we have more? Well, a lot of this has to do with some large groups starting their own residencies, for completely self-interest. It's a feeder so they can get their own people to work in their own shops. And so I think we really need to look at that. I would propose ACEP needs to do a couple things. I think we need to issue certificates of need for new residency programs in concert with the ACGME and RRC. I also think it would be important that ACEP as a revenue stream, because it's important that the college be viable, start looking at ways that we can credential emergency departments and saying that they're ACEP certified and what that would mean, much like the American College of Surgeons does for trauma centers. And part of that rubric would be what number of your physicians are board certified, but also longevity. How long have your doctors been with your hospital? How long have they had their contract? And that you're not just getting rid of people to bring in the next cheapest labor and then moving them through. So scope creep is very important. And, a third of our members in ACEP are residents and up and coming candidate members, and we represent them as well. They're very concerned about this, and I think rightly so. My group employs both NPs and PAs. We get a much stronger PA than we do an NP. We've seen that. They're trained by physicians, not by nurses. We've been very fortunate. Some of our NPs have been very strong. They were emergency nurses for a long time before it was cool to work for a year and then go to NP school. And no disrespect, there's a place for them, but not leading an emergency department. They need to stay in their lane. And I think it's part of ACEP's job to put up the guardrails and could be very clear about what a doctor is and also who leads the team in the emergency department. And it's an emergency physician, period, hard stop. That's just where I'm at. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is practice isn't compared on equal grounds. So we compare ourselves to our physician colleagues. NPs or PAs compare themselves to what other NPs would do. And I totally agree with you that the PA programs much more closely follow the medical model of training than what the current NP programs are doing. But they are going to succeed at independent practice. They already are in several states.
27 states.
And it won't be long.
Yeah.
And it won't be long before the PAs have to start doing it, where they're going to find them pushed out of the market.
Yeah. Again, this goes back to our patients. I bet if you ask the patient, who do you want taking care of you when you go to the emergency room? When they ask for a doctor, it's not typically a doctor philosophy, right? They want a physician that's trained, many, many, many thousands of hours of education and training. EMRA has a really great infographic that they're starting to roll out now that talks about what the training is. And it's been used in some of the arguments because of the NPs and the PAs. And ACEP came out with a statement with AEM as well. This is a very important issue to our members. And this is another example of an issue where we all have the same thoughts and the same messaging, but we're shooting each other in the foot. And so I think that, we need to be collective about what we're saying. I have a lot of friends that are members of AEM. I think they're a great organization, but sometimes they come out with statements. It's like they're wearing clown shoes and running through a minefield, and they say some things to trying to get a response on social media. I get it, but ACEP has the megaphone. And so if we have some splinter relationships there, let's work on building those bridges because we're stronger together. That's what I've always said. Just having conversation. It's one of the biggest things I said this year is, scientific assembly and leadership and advocacy are two of my favorite times of the year because you get together, you're learning a lot of things, but you're also with your peers. And we're talking about the issues that are important to our areas. And that's where a lot of the great ideas and decisions are made. You come up with these things and bring them back to different committees. It's the collective voice. And so, but scope creep is a huge issue. Again, this is the profits over patients when CEOs look at their bottom line. As a private group myself with COVID, we didn't have to cut hours or partners, fortunately, but we got rid of our scribes. And so now we're back to pre-COVID levels. We're very busy. Paradoxically, our volumes went down 50%. They buoyed back up. But looking back, our collections are very similar to pre-COVID just because the patients were so much sicker. It's just a weird dynamic that's occurring right now. But with that, we got rid of scribes, and now my partners we use Cerner, and so I've learned dynamic doc, and actually they're more effective, and they're actually liking it. As the quality director, I'm talking to them because what goes into their discharge, they're doing it themselves. And that's a cost savings of $750,000 a year for our group. And so that goes to the partners. And so we have learned some lessons, but cost savings. But when it comes to a hospital CEO, especially if they're subsidizing groups and things, it's pretty easy to say, I'm going to go for what's the cheapest. There's no substitute for us. There's just not. We need to keep keep with that messaging because it's what's true. Can I answer any more questions for you?
I would just have one more. What's the next challenge or two that ACEP's facing that's not on the radar for any of us right now?
You know, that's an excellent question, Luke. And I think one of the questions which we talked about is, you know, ACEP has had some financial challenges of its own. I think that there's going to be some financial transparency that needs to come to the board, you know, every year. And I think they're going to enter the council, which I think we're going to do this year. Nothing that we can't navigate, but, you know, I think people need to know, yes, we have amazing resolutions and we have thoughts we bring to the college, but they all come at a cost. I know my resolution could cost $250,000. I mean, that there's real numbers associated with these, you know, when you're getting economists and you want different outcomes. So we have a lot of great resolutions, but as I was talking, the finance committee, we had a meeting and, you know, sometimes costs exceed what you're able to do. And so I think that, you know, our challenge is increasing membership and the finances of the college. You know, this year is going to be a pretty large hit, even though they're not paying to have a site for scientific assembly and it's not in Dallas. A lot of expenses to the Lumi platform, and that's one of the largest revenue generators for the college is the college attendance to the conference that we have every year. And so just the finances. I think also, you know, we're looking at, you brought it up, that the whole scope creep has sort of just exponentially increased this past year. I mean, like I said, 27 states now. And so that could really affect our livelihood. And so if we don't keep it on the radar, it could just consume us. And so that's something that we need to keep messaging to the members through social media and also through the meetings and just trying to be proactive in these responses. Lots of different things, Luke. It's just, you know, it's just a matter of where do you want to dedicate your resources and your time and the volunteers that you have for the college, because it's just amazing. You know, as you know, a council every year we go and 400 plus counselors now, representative democracy, each counselor is 100 members of their states. Just an amazing brain trust. And it's, so much stuff gets done there every year. And so I just want to make sure that we can continue people being focused on the college. Concerning this year being virtual, we're hoping that the numbers will show that people are still interested, you know, but ACEP is so much more than just the CME, right? It's about being together with your colleagues and talking. It's like a family. And so I think the finances of the college and of the specialty going forward are a challenge. Also the scope creep, which has been exponential. And as you know, it's on the radar, but the whole balance billing, you know, President Trump made it an executive order, which we postponed until January to get a little more time. But I think next year is going to be a lot of regulations and rulemaking, and also talk about if we can have state exemptions, because that's coming. So we know that's happening. And so it's just a matter of making sure that it is something that is going to be something that we can deal with, okay, and that will make us whole financially and take care of our patients.
You mentioned that ACEP is strained for resources. So why do you think the college should go out and hire an independent economic analysis, pay for an independent economic analysis, when you have so eloquently outlined the problems in your resolution?
Well, Jim, I think what you say is very valid. Sometimes you need to spend money to make money, okay? And I think that I'm Jamie Shoemaker. So when I go on Twitter, Zach Cooper doesn't know me from Adam. I think if we have, you know, the idea here is we need to compare apples to apples. I'm going to be that messenger. Myself, the other fellows, you know, Zach Cooper keeps coming out. I'm sure you're all familiar with him on Twitter. He keeps coming out with articles that he's being funded by the big blues, okay, about different ways about why we're paid too much and not take care of our patients. Unfortunately, I think we need to come back with our own white paper that can counter that. I can talk to him blue in my face, but I'm Jamie Shoemaker. You know, I'm well known in my state, not so much on the Twitter sphere. And so I think that, you know, by having something that's more objective, and yes, and that's the cost for the entire package. But again, it's just like anything, I think that, you know, I think it's an investment that will pay dividends. And so I think that's something that the college will have to talk about. And that's why it comes to council for a robust discussion. They may get referred to the board. I don't know what the outcome of that will be. I just know that Dave McKenzie and Adam Krasinski are our two reimbursement staff at ACEP, and they do amazing work, but they're only two people. fact, the college actually, they had an assistant, but they let her go. And so it's the two of them that are doing all of this. I mean, what they do is just really unbelievable. So I'm hoping that we can, wouldn't it be great if we actually had a healthcare economist that was employed by ACEP? And so that could be something that they could look at as well. They've asked for that in the past. So it just depends on what comes out of this. But the members are concerned, residents are concerned. They want to make sure they're coming out with monstrous debt. And there's no reason when you're coming out of residency, you shouldn't be able to support your family, live in a nice home, and take care of yourself. And that's the bottom line. And we should not be ashamed of saying that we make good money for what we do, because we do save lives. I mean, that's
Right.
sounds.
Well, Jamie, you're way too modest. I would argue that the majority of ACEP members already agree with what you've written down.
Yeah.
It's not just you. Yeah. You're way too modest.
Yeah, the Resolution 25 is really just a compilation of just a lot of the challenges we had on our journey as fellows, which was just, and the way the college put that together was just unreal. So we're talking to all of the RCM folks and the Ed Gaines and Mike Gronowski and going to all the conferences and got some opportunities to present and looking at all the different papers coming from the different states. And it's just really unbelievable. Our colleagues are doing amazing things in all these different states. You see these wins we have in Louisiana, Randy Pilgrim, and the things that are happening in Texas. I mean, Dave Friedenson, Jay Mullen. I mean, amazing people doing amazing things. And so for me, I want their voices to be heard loud. So when I'm on the board, it's not going to just be Jamie as the reimbursement guy. It's going to be all these people that I've had the pleasure of being mentored by, that we're going to meet collectively and bring a message to the board and to the college and to those that, don't want to pay us for doing what we do very well. And so that's where I'm at. And so again, that's why I jumped the shark, if you will. Although I'm told by everybody I didn't jump the shark, but I'm doing this now because I want to bring the reimbursement skill set and toolkit that the ACEP gave to me now, because I think that, we need to be ahead of this. And so there's amazing candidates on the slate. And so I'm in this, for the specialty, for the people behind me, and to pay back to college for all of the amazing things that I've been given. So, you have a choice. There's amazing people. And so it's just a matter of what you think is best for the college at this given time. So.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Dr. Shoemaker. Anybody else have any other questions? It's already 1:26.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you all for taking the time today. I look forward to council. Make sure the asynchronous stuff is new for us. If you have any feedback, please let Gary or Kelly know, Gary Katz or Kelly know. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting process, though, the way it's all set up this year. So hopefully we'll have some robust discussion and get some of the resolutions through council. So, all right. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Amy,
Thank you,
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.